I hope you noticed that the citation at the top of your bulletin and the affirmation both come from Islamic sources. Many of my colleagues in the Christian community, at least, made sure they cited an Islamic source today. We'll be talking a lot about shelter this year as a symbol, as a reality. And one of the things I feel very strongly is that a community that is powerful and respected has a duty to give shelter to other communities that are beleaguered. Many Unitarian church that I have served literally rented or even gave away their building, not only to synagogues on their way up, but sometimes even to evangelicals, because it is our responsibility to care for all of our comrades. And so symbolically today, I'm holding in my hand, in my arms, the faces I know from the Muslim community here in Grand Rapids and telling them, welcome home. This is your house too. Of course, the other thing that's going on this week is the other kind of homecoming, not ours, but the one that governs all church matters. That's the school year, you know that. Because if it weren't for the school year, there'd be no summer vacation, and without summer vacation, there would be no summer cottages. It's all a racket, you know that. So when we had our early worship service this morning, I asked how many went back to school. Of course, lots of hands went up, and they're going from kindergarten all the way up to 6th grade, thereabouts. And let me put it this way. I asked some questions for which I already knew the answer. And I asked, what's your favorite part of the school day? And 2 answers won out in a polling. It's not a statistically valid polling, but I think it will ring true to you. The best parts of the school day are recess and lunch. And I said, that's exactly what I thought you'd say. And that's good, because those are exactly the things we do at church. So when you go to recess and lunch, you're actually training to be a grown-up. And in fact, in some ways, you're being better at being a grown-up than they are. For example, when you're at recess, you have to learn some new skills, because chances are you didn't know how to slide down a slide in your backyard or get on a really big swing set. But other important things like how to play games with other children and how to take turns. Now let's look at the way people behave in the big bad world of grown-ups. When you drive, do you take turns? I didn't think so. And sometimes we take unnecessary risks that our teachers would wave their fingers at if they saw us doing it on the playground. So we learn life skills at recess. We also learn other things when we go to lunch. We remember, don't we, when we were going to school, that they had lunches we didn't like. I'm old enough to remember that on Friday we always had fish because the Catholic kids didn't eat meat, and we all hated it. It was icky. But the teacher and the lunch matron always said, eat your lunch. This is non-optional. Now, some of us learned to slide it off the tray surreptitiously, but then we were hungry. And slowly we began to figure out that if other kids ate it, it may not be terrible for us either. And slowly we learned to eat some new foods, maybe not those that we would have chosen. We might swap our peanut butter sandwich for a tuna fish, or we might find out that a hard-boiled egg with a little salt and pepper was pretty tasty after all. My point here is that we do learn some important life skills even in the 1st grade. How to play nicely with one another, how to use rules, how to take turns, how to develop new skills. And sometimes we even learn how to be better at doing things with our bodies. Not everybody is a natural athlete. I was terrible at being in gym class and on the playground. I was always picked last. And because I was a big, stocky kid who didn't move very fast. I still don't move very fast, but I'm less stocky, thank you. But the point was that you learned how to be better with your body. One of the great memories of my youth, one of the very most powerful and satisfying memories was being among the last kids, not this part of it, being among the last picked for a softball game. It was on the field. I think I was in 6th grade. And it was actually a gym class, so we had equipment. They handed out gloves and balls. And I was playing 3rd base, and they put me there because they knew that almost no one ever hit that hard, that far, or ran that fast. So I was safe bet not to make too many mistakes. And sure enough, someone got on, and another person got on, so that there was someone actually on 3rd base and someone on 2nd base, and no one was out. And a kid actually connected on a fly ball, and I reached up my hand and I caught it to my own utter astonishment. And not only was I astonished, they were astonished that I'd caught it too. And so the fellow on third was already on his way, so I stepped on the bag. Double play. Best part is the guy coming from second didn't notice it either. He ran right into me. Triple play. Unassisted triple play. That was the highlight of my athletic life. And I'm being empirical now. Nothing better has happened since. My point here is that we should reflect back on our school days and remember some of the most important skills we have about ourselves and each other we learned there in those simple things called lunch and recess. And I'm saying this because I'm in the second of 3 sermons that enlarge upon those phrases, free the mind, grow the soul, and change the world. And last week I was talking about the free the mind part and how important it was to seek what I called religious literacy, the knowledge of religion in general and religions in particular, so that we're not taken by surprise with ignorance. We need only look at what's gone on in the Islamophobic responses in the days leading up to September 11th, to realize how much ignorance is out there, not only about Islam, but also about ourselves, and how this ignorance sets off fear, and how that fear makes us do foolish and sometimes cruel things. It is a shame, but the only way out of this is knowledge. And so one of the things we do here in this church is say that if it's true, we revere it, and if it's false, we revile it. And our task here is constantly to acquire a greater sense of what is true and what is false, and to be true to the true, and to be completely indifferent to the false. Religious literacy consists of knowing what is true and what is false, not in the sense of whether God exists, but what is true about a religion, whether it is mean or whether it is kind, whether it is honest or whether it is dishonest. And guess what? Since all religions I know of seem to have people in the middle of them, they all have a mixed jury on this. But we can at least become more familiar with the landscape of the world. So I asked us to look into religious literacy as a goal each of us can seek. In fact, there's a nice little brochure that I wrote last year that I'm putting out. It says, way more than 100 things every religious liberal should know, and it has a list of things, many of which you may not recognize, and that's your prompt to go out and find out more, to become more informed about the religious world. This week I'm talking about growing the soul and something I call spiritual fluency. And this is hard. This is in some ways harder to understand than the first one. We all like to learn. We all like to make a difference in the world. But this grow the soul part, that's hard to get. Probably because most of us are troubled by that notion that somehow the soul is this little wispy thing that lives in our head that when we die sneaks out our nostrils and goes someplace. We don't like that notion. It's a very old notion, and it's a very rational notion based on the knowledge available then. But I think most of us question its legitimacy now. But why did they have it in the first place? Probably because you and I have this experience, I think all of us do, that we are more than our thoughts, we are more than our emotions, we are more than our bodies. The sum is greater than the parts. It's not just all the parts put together, there's more. There's something more. We can't quite know what it is, but we sense it's there. The me-ness of me, the you-ness of you. And I call that the soul because it is the thing that glues you together, that gives you your particularity. And when I say grow the soul, I think we have to grow as human beings throughout our life. I did all of last year's sermons on that notion. Do you remember? Growing our soul as children, as youths, as adults, and even as elders, that there's always more depth we can find, more breadth in our hearts, in ourselves. Socrates was asked at the end of the dialogue called the Phaedo, when he's about to take his own life as a sentence for his crime, if there should not be a prayer. And he said,